Welcome back, folks, to the VHS Vault. I am VHS Jace, and next to me is the great Jason Roy Gaston. And this week on the VHS Vault, we're doing something we haven't done before.
A good show?
That is, we are reviewing a movie from Australia. I do believe this is the first Australian film that we've done here on the VHS Vault.
Is it? I could have sworn that
we haven't done Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, I could have sworn we'd done something. So this is the first movie from your neck of the woods.
Mad Max. Have we done Mad Max?
We have not done Mad Max. So I don't know if anybody realizes this or not, but VHS Jace here is Australian.
You can't tell with the accent?
I would have never guessed. My first thought was like Jersey.
Yeah, I've been accused of sounding English quite a lot, and I'm like, but I say one word starting with a C, and they go, "Oh yeah, you're Australian."
Yeah, well, you know,
kind of like our
Australia is basically, England's, refuse, so to speak.
Yes. That's when a time when the English proved themselves to be morons by sending their prisoners to a paradise. Good work there, the English. Worked itself out in the end. Okay, what we are talking tonight.
This huge. Welcome to Australia, mate.
This film that I've chosen tonight is Chopper. Eric Bana, Chopper. A film you'd never heard of.
I had never heard of this. And I'd asked a few people if they've ever heard of this movie. Not a single one did. They all knew they all know who Eric Bana is, but they had no idea what Chopper was. And until you told me we were doing this one, I'd never heard of it. And I'd never heard of what was his name? Neil Chopper, or I just had his name.
Mark Chopper Reed.
Mark Chopper Reed. I never heard of the man before. Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, this film is considered in Australia, and I think I can speak for most of Australia when I say this, in the top 3 films we've ever made. And we consider it that kind of plateau. It's up there with things like, well, geez, what else would you throw in there? And there becomes the hard part. But probably something like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, you'd want to put up there. The Castle are films that you would put up there. None of the Mad Maxes or Crocodile Dundees I consider some of our finest work. They're good Hollywood productions, but yeah, Chopper has become certainly an iconic film here in Australia. So I was interested to show you this film because it's a dark film.
Only a lot, yeah. Very, very violent, and I'm going to just say this outright. I did not like the protagonist. I did not like Mark Chopper Reed one bit. Now, I can definitely understand what makes him interesting, because he is charismatic while at the same time being, as you said, a feral animal. He is unbelievably sadistic and violent, but at the same time, he's incredibly insecure. And
incredibly insecure.
I can see why people would find this interesting. Now, I did tell you, this movie did not connect with me. And looking back, I watched this movie twice because I thought, well, maybe I've missed something. Maybe there's some great truth of it I'm not seeing. But the only great truth of it that I can see, and I sound like I'm just like trying to gain points saying this, like, I'm a social justice worker, a social justice warrior, social justice worker. I sound like that, but honestly, the second he beats up his girlfriend and her mother, instantly I was like, no, screw this guy. I hope he dies.
He has died. He did actually end up dying of cancer.
I did see that in the final caption where it said he was dead. My first thought was good.
Yeah,
I'm glad. Good.
It's an interesting thing, Mark Chopper Reed, because he became the darling of the media in the 80s when he was doing this crime spree. Australia kind of fantilized him, turned him into this folk hero, not understanding the sadistic nature who he really was.
Well, America doesn't have anybody like that right now at all. No.
And he's the hero of his own story. And that's what makes this fascinating, because Mark Chopper Reed was involved in the story of this film. He didn't write it or anything, but he was involved very heavily. Eric Bana and the director spent months with him. He believes even in these most horrific moments, it was either justified or he's the hero of them. And to me, that's what's kind of hung on so long for this film for me, and the multiple times I've seen it, is really the twisted nature of how he thought and how he behaved. And the fact that as a culture, we celebrated that. He became a folk hero. And it's bizarre. And it's based on the fact that I think Australians, if you're funny, we'll let you get away with anything.
My God, I could be your king.
And he is funny.
Not that funny, mate. Bugger off.
He's a funny character. There is out question. As an Australian, is it like you said, very charismatic, outwardly kind of character. And when he was funny, especially to us Australians, because the thing is, we've all known dudes like that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not to that degree, but the crazy eyes. Like, even when he was nice, he was insane.
Yeah, the only difference between Chopper and those guys that we knew is that the guys that we knew, we would always say, man, he's going to end up in jail someday. Chopper actually did. That's the difference right there. We all know that weird sociopath.
Yeah. And, and there are things in the movie that just don't make sense, but Chopper as a character doesn't make sense. Like the cutting off of the ears in prison.
Yeah.
Makes no logical sense. Really didn't give him an advantage in any way except made him look nuts. I think he tries to reason it by saying, well, people will leave me alone. That's kind of true.
I actually ended up like rewinding that whole scene because I thought, did I miss something? What? Is he Van Gogh all of a sudden? He's trying to outdo Van Gogh by cutting both of them off. Yeah.
He's cutting his ears off so he looks insane to the rest of the prisoners. So they'll leave him alone.
He wasn't already that way before, I guess.
Well, the other thing is, the thing about Mark Chopper Reed is power hungry. He was constantly looking to rise in power in whatever situation he was. And especially, and that comes through in that horrific scene in the prison, right? Where he just explodes really out of nowhere and stabs a guy in the face, neck, like chest kind of area multiple times by just screaming the C word at him. And it's so jarring as a moment. You kind of feel like you're there witnessing it in real life. And then it goes from this ultra violent, horrific moment to a comedic moment where he's trying to offer him a cigarette and go, oh, you'll be right, mate. You'll be right. It'll be good. He's trying to help him.
Yeah, it was like instantaneous regret. Every time he did this, anytime he did something violent or horrific, he instantaneously regretted it.
Like a child would.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Now, I like I said, this movie did not connect with me, but I will say I do recognize the skill behind it. I do recognize that Eric Bana is just outstanding in this part. I do understand why people like this movie. It's just not a movie that I would enjoy.
Put it this way, on a Saturday afternoon, what I feel like watching Chopper isn't at the top of the list. Like, it isn't. But it's still, like, to me, my favorite scene is when he's on amphetamines, he's on speed, and he's trying to extort the Greek drug dealer. And he's going, Chopper, no cashier, Chopper. Shoots him and ends up taking him to the hospital. Another example of instant regret. A twisted character who appeared like at that point in the 80s, the level of corruption in his town, Melbourne, the level of violence was at that level at an all-time high. He helped trigger like a lot of incidences. He also exaggerated a lot. And took a kernel of truth and blew it out. And they play that out in the film with the murder in the shopping car park.
Yeah, because he's like confessing to it at one point and they don't believe him, right? Yeah, I was understanding that right? Okay.
Yeah.
That was something I was kind of confused about for a bit. I was like,
Yeah.
what is, are the cops just saying that's okay? Kill this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said,
So
whatever, Chopper, shut up. Shut up. You
it's
didn't
an
kill nobody.
you
You're a
know, the
good
other thing
savior.
that goes against it, it's an ugly looking film, and that's on purpose. I
It
mean,
is, yes.
it is ugly, and it should be because it's reflecting the criminal underbelly of Melbourne at that time. Um, yeah, it's directed by a guy called Andrew Dominic, and you may or may not know him, but based on this film, that launched his career. He went on to do films like The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. What else did he do? He's done a few films, but he's a very accomplished actor. So, sorry, director. So yeah, Killing Me Softly was another one he had done as well. So he's that kind of gritty director, but it launched his career and it launched Eric Bana's career. So yeah, not a film to put on at Christmas time.
Quite honestly, the thing about this movie that surprised me the most was what I learned after, because I had absolutely no idea that Eric Bana did stand-up comedy. Because that is where the director saw him and was like, "Oh, there's my Chopper right there," and
He used to
cast
be
him.
on a show called Fast Forward. He was introduced to us in Australia about 1993, and it was a skit comedy show. You know, something like SNL, but without the live, just the comedy skits. And he was brilliant. He was huge in Australia way before he became a serious actor. When his first film appearance was in another Australian classic, which I will get you to watch because it is one of the great comedies Australia's ever done, called The Castle. And he has a minor role playing this this wannabe kickboxer. He's hilarious. And then this was his transition because it allowed him to use his comedy skill in this film because he needed to use it. You had to still carry that humor throughout this really dark tale. And yeah, it helped him transition, you know.
It's so funny because here in America, I honestly cannot think, and I'm sure he's probably done one, but I can't
Yeah,
think of a single
he's
comedic
done one.
role that Eric Bana has ever done. And I'm sure that there's one. I'm
Yeah,
sure,
there
but
is one.
I'm thinking, he was the Hulk, he was Munich, he was
Yeah,
in Star Trek, all of those
yeah,
very heavy dramatic roles. And who,
yeah.
who at one point or another hasn't said fire everything with like spit flying
Yeah,
everywhere?
yeah. Well, that's the byproduct of doing a film like Chopper, which went around Hollywood, like the executive suites all over Hollywood, and that's how he got his chances and how Ang Lee found him and things like that. But he got pigeonholed in there bit of playing a really scary, intimidating guy. But when he does his comedy, he's really funny. We in Australia look at him as just this. We still think of him from the comedy era more than the serious, you know. I wish he did more. He was in the sequel to, that spin-off movie they did. It was, I think it was called This Is 40 with Paul Rudd, and it was a spin-off of Knocked Up.
Yeah, I
He
haven't
was in
seen
that.
that one yet.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
he
So he
was in
has
that,
done a comedic role then.
and he was
I
quite
wanna see him do
hilarious in it.
more.
Yeah,
I wanna see him do more because Eric Bana is a very charismatic guy. I mean,
he's actually.
anybody who can play Chopper and make him charismatic, like the original guy was, because I did
Mm,
watch some archive footage of the real Mark Chopper. But
mm. And how
anybody who can
good a
basically
job.
copy
Yeah,
that is like really good, and I'd love to see him do more comedy. To be honest, I'm
we
sure he'd like
compass.
to also.
Mark Chopper Reed wasn't ever going to be. You wouldn't think it's a role that you've got to copy him, but you don't want to copy him too much, otherwise it won't work. And Eric Bana manages to find that balance of not making him too cartoonish, because Chopper in real life is pretty close to a cartoon character at some
Hmm.
points. And so you have to find that kind of balance, which I think he did. He did. This is definitely a dark tale. It's certainly something, and if you wanted to see the underbelly of Australia, and this is not a bad movie to watch, but be warned, there are multiple scenes that are very confronting and uncomfortable.
Yes.
And certainly, yeah, I'm a guy. I was watching R-rated movies when I was 13, but I don't think anyone under 18 should be watching this film, to be honest with you, just because of there are scenes that stay with you after the film. And
Oh, yeah.
you know the scenes, they
Yeah.
stay with you. When you think of Chopper, someone mentioned it, you're going to be thinking of those scenes. And they ain't pleasant, happy, you know, yeah, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Who I could just imagine Eric Bana coming home after the movie's premiere, gets a phone call, and goes, "Hello, hey, this is Chopper. I watched the
Huh.
movie. I didn't like you in it."
You
Oh,
know how
okay. I
you know
didn't
how
like the
some
way you made me
cultures
look, mate. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? I didn't mean to.
you know how some cultures
If Chopper wasn't
idolize.
dead, I wouldn't be making that joke.
No, no.
I saw your podcast, mate. You suck.
Everybody, and it was weird in the public, mate. He was so well loved. It was crazy, You saw, and he'd be in a local pub. People, hey, can I buy you a drink, Chopper? No, no, no. Crazy, insane kind of thought process. But you know how in say the African American culture, they idolize the movie Scarface. Like it's a movie that's
Oh,
in a
yeah.
lot of their like represented in paintings and t-shirts and all that stuff. Chopper is that to the Australian kind of, and I should clarify that section of the African American culture that's into gangland stuff. Chopper is that to our gangland stuff. Like people like look up to an idolize and I go, really? Like it's not like he has piles of money in he's always broke in that movie. He's always broke. He's always trying to glam more money. And so I don't know if that's someone I would be idolizing too. But he loved to be on TV. That was his thing. He loved to be on TV.
Oh, yeah, he
Also,
needed to be loved. He wanted people
yeah,
to he needed that he needed that affirmation all the time. That was something else I noticed. He just needed people to adore him.
yeah.
And I guess that's where a lot of his charisma came from.
He also became, after his crime and like spree had ended, he became a very successful author,
Oh, yeah.
writing crime novels. In fact, he sold more than 500,000 crime novels in Australia.
He
Considering
couldn't even spell.
so, he couldn't even spell. No, but he became very popular like that. He was actually a very clever self-marketer. He was, especially as he got a little bit older, he cottoned on how to turn. He knew he would become a brand in Australia. He knew he became that. And he exploited the hell out of it. Like he exploited everything in his life. So, yeah, there you go.
Good on him. I don't know. There's I don't even understand the deification of Scarface, to be honest. Because okay, I'm gonna get
No.
I didn't like Scarface either.
Yeah. Oh, see, I love that film, but it's weird where, because it's a very De Palma film, and I love Brian De Palma films. He makes excellent films like The Untouchables and Blowout, which is a masterpiece, and things like that. Scarface is, but if you think about Scarface, right, it's you can see why certain people go, "Oh, that's cool," because everybody just remembers the montage. Take it to the limit, where he's getting the money, the frauds, and the cars, and that.
And then of course, hello to my little friend. Yeah,
because it's a cool way to die.
Is it though?
No, not really. No, not really.
Anyway, I just don't connect to these
but it is weird how. Oh, but you're right. People become obsessed with those characters, and they blur the lines of what is morally appropriate and what is real. It's a weird thing. But I have to recommend this film, Jason, out there for a cinephile or something to watch this film. I'm not even going to say that you're going to have a great time, but damn, for me, and I know for a lot of people in Australia, it's like glue. If it ever comes on TV or anything like that, you just stop and watch it. He's so intoxicating, that guy. It's wrong.
Well, I don't doubt it. I have to admit, I find him very fascinating. But like I said, these type of movies just aren't for me. It's nothing against this film, nothing against it. I recognize the talent that it took to create it. It's just not for me.
Well, you brought up an interesting point earlier on when we talked about maybe it's a cultural film. And I think there's a lot of validity to that, because it's like watching a twisted biography of someone we had prior knowledge of. So we've lived this kind of thing in our culture where we knew about this guy and it was on TV and it was always, he was kind of became a folk hero. So to make a film of it, there's been all this past knowledge, kind of like when you've read a book and it finally becomes a movie or something, So I think that definitely affected because, and it's a kind of nuanced look at Australia, not the Australia that most people think of. When you think of Australia.
I think of deadly animals and fun people.
You were like, where are the koalas and wombats in this thing?
Koalas are up in the trees going, stab him, Chop, stab him. I love you, Chop.
Uncle Chop Chop. That's what he used to
Can I eat that other ear, Chop, if you're not going to use it?
But here you go. I'm glad you've seen it, so I'm glad you've seen it, because if I ever make any references now, at least somebody in America will get my reference.
Yeah, I can be the guy who goes,
Hey, well, Jace, we've watched two horror films two dark, disturbing films in a row now. This and Superman 4. So
yes. And don't forget Leprechaun. Leprechaun, that's 3 in a row.
Oh, yeah, 3 in a row. Yeah. Leprechaun. You know what? It'll be good to kind of change the pace next week because, well, for some people, this became a horror film. And for others, some people love this film.
Who? I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've ever made it all the way through this movie.
Wow.
This will be my first time to watch it from beginning to end. And
you saw it in cinema?
No, I didn't see it in cinema. No.
I hope we're talking about the same film here. Maybe I'm off schedule.
We're continuing our recap of the Superman films. And so our next stop is Supergirl.
Because, that's right, because you kind of got onto it in Superman 3, didn't you? Or because I keep forgetting you're actually a little bit younger than me, even though, just a smidge. I forget, just a smidge, which does change the timing of things. By this is the 4th film in the franchise theatrically released at the time. So I had to see it.
We didn't want to interrupt our Christopher Reeve-a-thon. So
but chronologically, that is a correct statement, what I just said.
Yes. I honestly thought Supergirl came out after Superman 4, so that was actually my fault. But yes, we're going to trudge our way through Supergirl. I don't know, maybe I'll see something about it that I didn't see before.
Well, it had a bigger budget than Superman 4, I believe. It had money behind it.
I have made home movies that have had bigger budgets than Superman 4. But after Supergirl, please don't abandon us. Please don't, because after Supergirl, one of my favorite films of all time that nobody seems to talk about anymore, we're going to look at the classic, beautiful, and only good movie that ever had Paul Walker in it, Pleasantville. And Fast and Furious fans are just going, what did they say?
I was thinking that movie Roadkill. I was thinking, is he doing that Roadkill movie?
Oh, no, yeah. We call it Joyride here, but yes.
It's a good film, by the way.
I play with everybody who loves the Fast and the Furious movie. Paul Walker was a bad actor. I'm sorry. Rest in peace, Paul. You were a bad actor, but he
made lots of money in the end. He was doing what he loved in the end. So
he did. You know what? I love the guy, but he was a bad actor. He really was. But he fits in this movie. This is actually my favorite Paul Walker role.
Yeah. Well, this is a film that I've seen once and seen on video, like in the 90s, I believe. Never a lot of revisit it again. So I'm eager to go back and see because it's got a small cult following, hasn't it? People who love this film seem to I love this film.
It's beautiful. This movie is absolutely beautiful in its theme and its execution, the performances in it. The movie's beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it again because it's been a few years for me.
Yeah. No, that'll be great. And then we go then to Bryan Singer world where Superman returns after that.
Yes, Bryan Singer, however, is required to stay 200 yards away from a school.
Yeah, well, from me as well. I don't want anything to do with him. However, in this period, this is the film, remember, he left X-Men 3-4. He said, up yours, X-Men franchise. I don't need you no more.
Yep. And James Marsden was like, Yeah, I'm going to go over there too.
Yeah, yeah, because I'll actually
And
get
Bryan
screen
Singer was
time
all like,
over
"You
there.
are? Oh God, you are?"
There you go.
I like
So
James Marsden too.
coming up,
I'm just playing with him.
we have a bunch of really great stuff to talk about here on the VHS Vault, Chase. I'm super excited about not just those movies coming up, but the whole entire year of great films that we're going to be discussing here on the VHS Vault. However,
Indeed.
that list is malleable. It can be changed. And can you tell the folks how they could change it?
Absolutely. VHS Jason and I are like putty in your hot little hands. Hold us just right and we melt. And you can do that by visiting the video description below, where you will find a link that will lead you to our Patreon. There you can pledge $5 a month or more, and you will get all kinds of goodies for that, including early access to our videos and prioritized review requests. So if you're like, I don't want to watch Pleasantville, I want to watch something different. Well, you can send us a request and say, I want you to record this, and we can go, ew, okay, fine, and
Yeah.
we'll review it. You can also
Just ask
become a
James
channel
Gibbons about
member
that.
and get our videos early that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But we will say you got to pick a good film because
Yeah,
poor Mr. Gibbons picked Stargate and look what happened. So
but he was a good sport, though.
he's great.
He was
He's
a
great.
good
We love
sport
him.
about it.
We
He was
love
just
him.
like, oh yeah, you guys didn't like that movie. Well, thanks, guys. We're like, yeah, thanks, James. Appreciate
No,
it.
he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. But be like James, become a legend and support us. And that's it, Jace. I think we'll get out of here now. What do you reckon?
Let's go.
Let's get. See you guys.
Get to the chopper.